Oh, and welcome back to Fighting for the Truth. Here at Fighting for the Truth, we buy the truth and we sell it not. As you can tell, I am again not behind the desk inside of the studio recording. I've been in the hotel room recording once again, but I had to come to you because I have a couple of things to share with you. And if you have not yet had the opportunity to go ahead and listen to Senior Associate Justice Clarence Thomas deliver his lecture, some may call it remarks, at University of Texas, located in Austin. You got to listen to that speech. It's a powerful lecture, speech, remarks, whatever you want to call it. Very powerful, coming from a man from humble beginnings. And if you don't know much about Justice Clarence Thomas, it behooves you to go back and watch documentaries that they've done on him, even before you even lead up to the Senate confirmation hearing when he went through a tough time, even tougher than Justice Kavanaugh had to go through. Of course, they accused Justice Thomas, because he was a Republican, obviously, right, of sexual assault, rape allegations with a woman, turned out to be false. Went through that ridicule, went through hate. He went through bigotry, of course, went through being mocked, being hated by the black community, all because he did not marry a black woman. If you're not aware, his wife is not black. She's a white, Caucasian, wonderful patriot, wonderful Christian, wonderful woman, Miss Thomas is. But Justice Clarence went through all that. But you have to go back to his upbringing. Of course, his grandparents took custody of him and his brother in the Jim Crow South, where where their mother was not able to financially care for them and nurture them to become great citizens, I'll say, great productive black men, which they successfully did under the guidance, leadership of God Almighty and their grandparents. And you will hear Clarence Thomas, again, Justice Clarence Thomas, pay his due respect to his grandparents who sacrificed and paved the way for him and his brother, but particularly for him to get where he is today. Over 30 years serving on the United States Supreme Court, with over 47 years, I believe it is, in the criminal justice judicial branch um, arena, I'll call it. It's very, very important that we remember people like Justice Clarence Thomas. Of course, we talk about Dr. Martin Luther King, we talk about Malcolm X, we talk about Rosa Parks, we talk about many other civil rights leaders who made way for people like me to be able to sit here um, in a chair facing a camera and talk to you. And it's amazing that you would even take time out of your day to listen to what I have to say, even if it's for a minute, 30 seconds. But all those people paved the way to get to where we are today. But we cannot forget people as well as Justice Clarence Thomas and, of course, Justice Thurgood Marshall, who broke into the judicial branch of our government, meaning when I say broken to, broke barriers as it pertains to a different race have an opportunity to showcase their rightness, their brilliance, their fortitude, their strength, their faith, all that brought them to the Supreme Court. And of course, Justice Thomas is still serving on the Supreme Court with wonderful, wonderful Christian conservative views. And we praise God Almighty for having chosen Justice Thomas, who brings a balance to that court. And of course, several others who um, served on the Supreme Court who has the conservative Christian ideology type thoughts and beliefs. We need that balance. Could you imagine if we did not have a conservative, if we did not have conservative justices serving on the Supreme Court in 2026, what it would look like? God only knows. But Justice Thomas talks you through his upbringing, his childhood, and where he came from to where he is today. And you'll find out that he did attend a Catholic school at a very young age, his high school years, I believe. And if I'm correct, I believe it followed him throughout his life. But he speaks of the nuns who nurtured, cared, and also carted him through and helped him navigate through tough times in his college career. Because you got to remember, those were still during the time of heavy segregation, bigotry, times of a racial divide, of course, not just a divide racially, but a mental divide. You know, believing that there was only one supreme race, and that was a white race, and that nobody could do it better than them, and nobody had the opportunities that they should have to explore America as it pertains to reaching out and going to colleges and uh, graduating college and then pursuing a profession, a career that would carry them throughout their livelihood and their lifespan. So Justice Clarence talks about that in that speech, but he also gives warnings, and he also gives. I said also twice, by the way. I caught myself there. He gives them a roadmap. Speaking of the university, the students who came to hear him, and many others, but focusing on the students, and I would imagine they were law students. Talks about the Constitution, talks about our independence as we, as an America, as a whole, as a nation, uh, are on the brinks of celebrating 250 years of our independence. And you look at 1776 on July the 4th, matter of fact, on to July the 3rd, where we were separated from the British. You look at those things and you come up with America has not always been great, but we are at a point in our life where we are great and we are hoping to be even greater. That's why Make America Great Again says a whole lot. And if you're familiar with that saying, President Trump actually coined that campaign slogan, flipped the words around just a tad bit from President Ronald Reagan, okay, who originated that slogan. Okay. But going back to America, we are at a pivotal time in 2026, the year of our Lord, that we have to break down the barriers and we have to continue to speak to not only our college students, but to high school students and to our children, and to let them know that you can be great in this country if you put your mind towards hard work. And if you, first of all, keep God first, listen to your parents, whoever that parent may be. And let's address that. Many, some, and maybe uh, several. Okay, follow me. Do not have a two-parent home figures, meaning father and mother, in their home. Does not mean that you cannot succeed and be great. Does not mean that you cannot continue to go forth and be a good law-abiding citizen. Does not mean that you do not have the same skill set does not mean you won't have the same opportunities as a person that does have that to a person that does not have that. It's all in the mindset, but it's also how you are raised by either two parents or one parent or grandparents or aunt or uncle, grandfather or grandmother. It does not matter. Even if you are in a foster program, even if you have been adopted, if you have that good structure, okay, then you have all you need. And how do you have a good structure? Well, you have to have a good foundation that is built around Judeo-Christian values. Of course, that parent or guardian has to have those values. If they do not possess those values, you most likely will not have a good outcome. And you most likely will not have a good household environment because you have to have these things in order to have a mixed and balanced lifestyle. But God has to come first in that, of course, then He leads you, and meaning father, mother, brother, sister, whoever, in the right path so that you can set a course for your family. And that is what parenting is all about. Setting a charter, a roadmap to follow and to help you get to point A to point B so that when you are able to go out and venture out on your own through college or wherever, maybe just experience in life, you will have a roadmap, but you will also have an anchor that says, I'm only going to be able to go this far because that rope does not reach as far as I want to go. Speaking of evilness, things you shouldn't be doing, crimes, it'll bring you back and say, okay, this rope can only go that far. And I know that if I break this rope, I'm going to fall off the cliff. Or I don't have, okay, that carabiner that's going to help me when I'm climbing up the mountain, trying to get to the top. So all that said is when you look at what Justice Thomas is saying, he is letting those college students know, don't forget the foundation of how America was started, how it exists, the barriers that have been broken by great civil rights activists. And we're not only talking about black civil rights activists. Understand there were many Caucasian civil rights activists mixed in probably with a couple other multiracial people in the crowd. But those people paved the way so that we can have these conversations, so that we can go forth and continue to be great as a nation. Now, I want to say this. Of course, we know that there was racism. We know that this country spent many years in a slavery mindset where they enslaved Africans from Africa, bringing them to Virginia, and then scattering them abroad throughout the South to perform manual labor. We know that. And it was a bondage that was held tight for many, many years. We will never forget that. I always say this. We're never going to forget about history. History is there so that we don't repeat it. But history is also there to remind us where we once were to where we are now. Okay? And that's what Justice Clarence Thomas, at the end of the day, summing his speech up was saying. Founders understood where we will be in 2026 by setting up not only our Bill of Rights, but also all of the amendments, all 27, okay, so that we can have a foundation that we can go forth and to look back on, a blueprint which is demonstrated and used daily in our justice system, judicial branch, especially when it's pertaining to the state, okay, Supreme Court, all the way up to the highest level of our United States Supreme Court. SCOTUS built that foundation so that we could have something to go by. so that when your rights, when your, well, I'll just say when your human rights or even civil rights are violated, we can open that book up, look at it, and check it off to see if any of those things that the founding fathers put in place have been trampled upon. And if they have been, there is a redress, but there's also a course of action and a correction that can help steer that car back into its lane of travel. The very foundation of America. So it's great to always hear Justice Thomas speak to us because he has a lot to say. Brilliant, excellent moderator, orator, speaks very well to the common man, to the illiterate, to the most intelligent person can understand what he's saying. He's breaking it down, putting us on a evil level so that we all can understand where he's coming from. Very wise man. If you have not listened to that speech, it behooves you to go ahead and do so. It is very powerful. It will impact you, it will motivate you. And so that's what we challenge you to do. And also keep in mind, we don't always get opportunity to hear from Justice Thomas or any of the justices, but in particular, Justice Thomas. They live a very not sheltered life, but a very closed life so that they will not have any issues as it pertains to when they have to hear cases and interpret the law. There's no bias, they're neutral, and there is no room for people who are looking at that glass house, looking through that glass mirror to point and say, this is what I saw them doing last week. So that's why you don't see them much. They live a very closed life, private life. That's what I see use of more better, more appropriate term. Does not mean they don't have thoughts. Does not mean that they don't have opinions. It does not mean that they're not watching. They're just are supposed to live their life in an impartial, every judge should anyways, but specifically to the United States Supreme Court, live a neutrality and have neutrality within their judgments and to leave biases and to leave subjective moments out of their hearings and, of course, their rulings, their decisions, even when they are dissenting. The Supreme Court is the highest court in our nation. What they decide on is always impacting the whole country, but it is life changing to many. We saw that with, you look at Roe versus Wade, go all the way back to the decision of the birth rights. Look at the decision as it pertains to whether President Trump had the executive authority to issue tariffs on allied countries or countries that we conduct trading with. All that is heard by the United States Supreme Court when it has to reach that level. So it is a very, very important job, and you need very, very intelligent attorneys slash judges. But obviously, they all were once attorneys. But you need a clear, concise person who can interpret that law or whatever that they're hearing from the particular case that they are going through, to be able to lay all the papers on the table, all the documents, all the evidence, everything that has been presented to them, and make a sound judgment, one that is not based, again, on any prejudice, any biases, but one that is based on neutrality and partiality, And then the main thing is to make a decision that is based on a sound judgment. And I believe that, I'm going to say President Clarence Thomas, Senior Associate Clarence Thomas has all of those traits that I just named and talked about. So pay close attention to SCOTUS, okay? You want to know what they're doing. And yes, sometimes the cases are long, boring, and redundant. And you know if you follow any of the cases, you can do an audible version when they are available at SCOTUS.gov, and you can listen to the arguments that are being posed. Okay, you'll hear some very, very, very important information, but not only important information, you'll hear words used that you never knew existed. You'll have to go Google or to a dictionary to understand it. And of course, when you're interpreting the law, there'll be words that we're not familiar with as it pertains to common language every day. A lot of that, some of that stuff that they use within the law, criminal justice setting, anyways, in courtrooms, is derived from Latin terms. So some of the phrases that are used, amicus briefs, those are Latin terms that we have injected into our criminal justice law book. So those things are embedded in there. So you need to be able to understand it. But at the end of the day, this is what I want to tell you. Remember what the Constitution allows us to do. And as we see day in and day out, I'm just going to stop at the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Okay. When we look at that, freedom of religion, all those things are being trampled upon in 2026. People are forgetting the very foundation, the first of all principles that our forefounders, James Madison, okay, all these great contributors to the Constitution, what they wrote, the significance of it, and why they placed them in chronological order for reasons. Why the First Amendment happens to be, as freedom of speech and all those things I named to you, happens to be the First Amendment. We all know first typically means, nowadays you don't know, but it was designed for first to be the best, the greatest, most important. That's why we have freedom of speech, freedom of the press, all those I named in the First Amendment. And that is why our founders put that as the first one, so that we can always understand this is the very foundation, as I stated. And without the First Amendment, our country fails, we fail. But that is what is happening all across America, especially when you look at the conservatives like myself and many, many others. They want to silence what we're saying. Imagine this: traveled all day, made it to the state, came and checked into the hotel, set up the broadcast so that we could get this out to you. Because it's very important. It weighed on my heart as I watched that speak, but while flying. What a beautiful context, beautiful setting. And here I am bringing this to you. Very important. And why is all this important? Because again, if we do not take time out, sit back and think it through, and realize those are in hierarchy and power right here in this country, even outside this country, that wants to tear apart the fundamental that was enshrined and built. If we sit back and let them, our country is going to be completely destroyed. but it's up to us to keep challenging one another. It's up to us to keep pushing. It's up to us to tell friends and family, our loved ones, our youngins, and those who we are nurturing and those who we are guiding, talking about our young generation up, to make sure that they don't forget what's at stake, what's important. We got to do it. So we appreciate Justice Clarence Thomas. It's very important to me that we pay homage. And as they say, let's not always give flowers to those when they're not living. Let's do it when they're alive. Justice Clarence Thomas is still alive. He's here. Let him smell his roses while he's on earth. He's doing an amazing job. He always has done an amazing job. And I pray for his safety, his health. Pray that God will continue to keep his brain sharp, because we need him. He's a champion. He's a fighter. He doesn't waver. He doesn't back down. He holds the line. And we need more people like him. I pray that his law clerks who are working with him, the interns that are working with, everybody who's working with Justice Thomas, that we have some training going on for someone to be able to be uprooted and lifted and placed in his seat. Of course, I know that's presented, and of course, that is given, that authority is given by the president to nominate who he or she wants next. But I pray that it's somebody who has the training, the fortitude, experience, and the skills, and most of all, the mentorship from Clarence Thomas that will take his spot someday. But again, we pray for many, many more days, years of Justice Clarence Thomas, because we need him on our Supreme Court. He's doing a great job. And to the other justices who's serving on the conservative side, keep up the good work. Again, you got a blueprint right there. Justice Clarence Thomas, Senior Associate Justice. Follow his leadership. Follow what he's doing. Follow mimic what he writes, even mimic his dissents, his decisions, his rulings, and follow that. He's been very successful at it. Look, I've been talking for very, very long, but I wanted, well, in my mind, really, I hadn't been even talking that long, 28 minutes, almost at 30 minutes. I'm doing pretty good. But again, I want to challenge you to do that. Don't forget it. But as we wrap up, I definitely want to make sure that you see my hat, Freedom. This hat, of course, it went viral after we saw the live assassination of our dear brother and friend, Charlie Kirk. He was wearing a Freedom shirt, of course, a white t-shirt with black lettering. Of course, went viral as it pertains to the apparel of the actual letters. And it was very significant that he would even be wearing something like that on that particular date of his assassination. But of course, everybody loved it. And it is never not a time that I don't see a Freedom hat shirt or something to that effect somewhere. Of course, me being connected with Turning Point USA, I see Freedom a lot. So I actually wear this a lot, and I'll be wearing it tomorrow. But freedom is very important. So we're going to wear that on our hearts, our hands, wherever we have to wear it. But everybody is marketing for good reasons, doing some marketing or branding, I should say, with the Freedom logo, whether you buy it from Turning Point or ever. And of course, you only get these hats, hopefully, from a conservative company. So I'm representing the Heartbeat brand. Do you see this hat? Take a look at it. Look at the stitching inside. We the people. Speaking of the Constitution, I got it on my beak, underneath my beak. But this hat is part of the Heartbeat brand collection. Now, I want to tell you this really quick. Here at the Heartbeat brand collection, they are building a community united by shared interests and passion. Okay? That is what they're doing by offering a meaningful logo wear, hats that will inspire individuals to live with passion, follow their dreams, and express what makes their heart beat. These are premium hats, of course, and you can get your own brand, your own, I should say, more of collection, or maybe you just want to go down the line and get every color in the Freedom branding. Go right ahead. Premium hats. And you can go browse the website for free. Go to theheartbeatbrand.com. Again, it's free. So go browse around and see what works for you, see what hat you will enjoy. And of course, you can use an exclusive promo code and receive 25% off of the Heartbeat brand collection at checkout by using this code. Watch this, write it down in all caps. In all caps, I repeat, in all caps, write this. Fighting for the Truth Show. Now you got to put it in all caps, and you'll receive 25% off. And I promise you, when you get your hat, you'll understand once you put it on, whether you buy a beanie, whatever it may be, once you put it on, you'll see why and what makes your heart beat. It's a beautiful hat. I love it. I'm wrapping up. Now, as I always wrap up, you know what I always say, and I missed this in the last episode, probably because I wouldn't sit behind the desk, but I gotta do it. I gotta do this because you're waiting for me to do it. Would you please do me a favor? Would you please do me a favor? Would you please do me a favor? Buy the truth and sell it not. Remember, you cannot sell the truth. You have to give it away. And why do we give it away? Because it's the truth. And when you know the truth will set you free. So until we meet again, until we do this again, I always say, God bless our great country. God bless the men and women that are serving in our United States Armed Forces. And God, please continue to bless the men and women that are serving in blue. We'll see you again. I look forward to it. Take care.